everyone. Welcome back to Medicine for These Times. I am so honored to have Jonathan Quest Brown with us here today. Jonathan, thank you for being here. So good to
Yeah,
finally have you on.
thank you for the invite. I'm really excited for today.
So, Quest, I'll call you Quest because that's
Yeah.
what I'm used to saying. Quest is a tech savvy, creative, sacred facilitator and integration coach. He blends the wisdom of indigenous traditions with holistic modalities, including Reiki, yoga, and somatic approaches, to guide individuals on their transformative journeys. Quest works with sacred medicines such as mushrooms, cacao, and 5-MeO-DMT. As the co-founder of the Three Rivers Psychedelic Society, aka TRIPS, he is dedicated to educating and supporting the safe use of psychedelics in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. With a background in technology and a passion for creativity, Quest fosters holistic wellness, personal transformation, and innovative solutions within a nurturing community. And I am so excited because Quest was in my True Path Entrepreneur Group Mastermind program for the last year, or almost a year.
Crazy.
And it's so funny because we know so many people in common. And when you came to me, I was like, oh, I've already been following you. I see you as a leader in this space. Like, what's going on? And, just to witness how much growth you've had in the last year is just so incredible. I mean, you've spoken on stage and you've been down at South by. But I have never heard like the full extent of your background and your story. I know you worked in tech. I know you're hanging out in Pennsylvania. But how did you get onto this path with medicines, into yoga and Reiki and on this path? And then also, how'd you start to make a career out of this and kind of move out of the tech world?
Yeah. So I definitely, it's a really, well, one, just want to say I'm really grateful being here. Two, grateful for the mastermind year-long program. That definitely has played a huge part in my growth. And three, as I've shared on previous interviews or just like talking to folks. I've written a couple articles about this. I won't go into the super deep details, but pretty much it's grief that has been the catalyst onto this path. And the first big moment for me, I've gone through grief before, but like the first real close piece was losing my aunt, my mom's twin sister. Well, they're Irish twins, I should say, right? And then my mom passed 6 months after her. They both died the same way in 2018 by a heart attack. And I'm the only child. My mom raised me. My dad was on his own journey since I was very little, right? Created another family. But when she passed away, it was totally unexpected, and this deep introduction into like death and grief was so intense for me. Um, I remember being at our house the day before with my kids, and at the time, I didn't understand I didn't fully understand the way that spirit and the universe communicates through people or through situations, right? Um, I was just thinking my mom was, mom, I hate to say this, but it's the truth. I love you. I thought she was just being annoying, like, hey, come over, come over, come over. Because I had reached out to her earlier and I was going to go, but like having kids, getting off of work, I was just being lazy. And she kept hitting me up like, hey, I really want to see you. I really want to see you. And I'm just so grateful that I went because we went over there. We stayed there for like 3 hours, talked about a whole bunch of stuff. And that was the last time that I saw her, and she had a heart attack the next day getting ready for work.
Oh my God.
And that next day, I actually haven't shared this with anybody, but I'm going to share it here because I think this goes to like my introduction to grief. I was at work. Her job reached out to me. They couldn't get a hold of her, so I went. I left my job, went to her apartment, and she was just laying there in the bathroom floor. And I stayed with her by myself for hours until folks from the funeral home showed up. And then it got even deeper to, like, again, this introduction to grief. It was so, so intense that the guy who showed up, he came by himself. So he needed help as far as putting her, getting her situated. I know it was like so and so intense, so trigger warning if anybody's listening to this. But yeah, I had to help him through the process of putting my mom away, taking her downstairs into the car and like seeing her drive away. So that was it. And then like the next day it all started because I remember he was crying on my couch and then I hear her talking to me, just like you and I are having a conversation.
Wow.
So yeah, it started there. And then 3 days later, I just found myself in Amsterdam. I didn't feel like dealing with the funeral. And I went to Amsterdam for like 9 days by myself for the first time. And that's where I tried magic truffles out there. I came back home and it was in a recreational sense. I came back home and I found a mentor that taught me how to meditate. Then Kundalini yoga appeared. And, the other medicines popped up in my life for like 2 years. And I'm like on my own journey of exploring for 2 years by myself, not telling anybody. And yeah, I came out of that. The world started to shut down, and then, Clubhouse appeared, and I started like meeting folks. I'm like, wow, okay, I'm not the only one that's like doing this stuff.
That's probably how I met you, actually.
I met a lot of people in the space.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just like talking about my journey. So yeah, it was that, and then it just kind of like started with friends and family. Then I started to see how important it is to have the science along with the spiritual aspect, because I came from the spiritual side, and the science was really important for me, spending my time in tech, just learning how these medicines work with our body, and with the folks that I interact with in my life. It's just important to be able to speak both languages, I thought. So that's when I started to dive into like a lot more trainings, integration coaching, facilitator training, and just really prepping myself to step into my purpose that kept appearing during that 2 years.
Oh my God. Thank you so much for sharing this story. Whew, that's deep. I mean, and I'm just curious, when you went to work with truffles just recently after this experience, was it more like processing some of this, or was it more just, like you mentioned, recreational, like,
Oh, no.
Okay,
It was
get
fully
away?
recreational. Yeah, it was fully recreational, and it was very scary because, again, I didn't know what I was doing, and I'm not telling anybody to go ahead and do this. This was just my experience, right? I didn't know anything about preparation, integration. I'm just like walking around Amsterdam, and I'm seeing people leave out these magic shops, and they're like giggling. I'm like, what the hell is this? So I went to Reddit, looked up some stuff. It's like, oh, okay. Let me go try. Let me go try it. And it was purely recreational and a very scary experience. Um,
Wow.
I had a couple of friends back home that stepped in as what I consider like my fireside chat at that time, because I put something on Instagram like, hey, I just did something and I don't know what's going on and I'm like terrified. And I had two of my buddies hit me up and they just kind of like coached me through, like, okay, it's only temporary. You're not going
Wow.
crazy. Eat something if you want to come down. I was like, oh, so I'm so grateful for them. But yeah,
Oh
it
my.
was pretty intense. It was pretty intense.
Yeah, no joke. No joke. Oh my God. Wow, thank you for sharing all this. And so I'm curious because it's funny you mentioned Clubhouse. I always forget about it, but yeah, it was the middle of the pandemic and it was really fun actually. And I was one of the somewhat active people on there.
Yeah, I
So
remember.
then when was the turning point where you realized, you were working in tech, which I can only assume was probably like a good career because, tech. But then where was this point where you're like, oh, I want to make this my life, like make this even my career, like what happened? What was the turning point there?
Yeah. So it was actually, I always knew that the work that I'm doing now is where I'm going to end at, and tech is a stepping stone as far as getting there, right? So I took a couple of breaks from my tech career within like the last 6.5 years. The first break was to just simply meditate and travel and like do yoga by myself. I really wasn't thinking about uh, building a business, going through some Reiki trainings and whatnot, but that was really for me, you know. That break, sometimes I go back and think like, maybe I should have did it differently, but it happened how it was supposed to happen, you know. After that first break, I found an appreciation to go back into tech because I'm a father. I have a 16-year-old and a 12-year-old next month. So, kids are expensive. So, tech was definitely the medicine. My path allowed me to find a new appreciation for tech, because I think before that I was so focused on just like, I don't want to do tech again, la 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 la. But it helped me find like this is a part of my story, part of my journey. So be grateful for the path that I've been on because it's helped me get to where I'm at right now. So that was really neat to find, and that allowed me to go back into tech. So I was doing both, kind of like one foot in, one foot out. On weekends, doing ceremonies, Monday through Friday, I'm in the startup industry, doing my tech things and whatnot, and having so much conversations with some people, but also just telling folks, oh, I just went to a yoga retreat this weekend, right? But meanwhile, I'm like out doing mushrooms and, all the things that come with it. So, like I said, finding that appreciation for both was really good because I was able to find the balance. And then spirit, again, coming up. I can remember in 2023, that's when things started to pick up a lot for me. A lot of like speaking engagements at conferences or traveling opportunities or like working on retreats. And I was just accepting everything, not knowing how I was going to like do it. And again, spirit, I got laid off from my tech job. And it was really interesting how that happened because before my manager at the time like reached out to me, I got this download like you're being moved. I was like, what do you mean I'm being moved? What does this mean? And then he like immediately reached out like 15 minutes later, like, hey, can we talk?
Wow.
No, there's not a meeting, let's talk. I'm like, all right, hop on. And that's when it happened. But it was actually the best thing to happen for me because I was so attached to the security of a tech job, right? And I don't think I would have left if this situation didn't happen the way it did because I was so attached to that security. So for the remainder of the
fake
time,
security.
Yeah,
Because you lost
that
it
fake
anyway.
security, right? And they took it away from me immediately. And that's what I needed because that put me in a situation where, okay, what I've been told is a complete lie for my entire life. You have to build this up on your own. And that's when I was like, all right, this is it. Let me go fully into what I'm building, putting myself out there. And there's been a lot of ups and downs. It's actually really, really a hard thing to do that brought up a lot of insecurities and other things. And, it's a tough road. And I didn't really realize like how much inner things I need to work on when building a business. And your mastermind like popped up at the right time because that's what I was really like navigating. And, a lot of the stuff that you speak about in the class is the inner work, right? The inner work and how important that is when you're building a business. And I didn't realize that.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. And yeah, that's when you came to, I think through my former client, Jonathan, another Jonathan, I think had shared about it because he was the same exact story. It was like good, secure job in tech. And then, miserable and needing the kick in the butt, you know? And I always say that if we don't make the changes ourselves, the universe will do it for us, usually. I mean, sometimes in an easier way and sometimes in a less pleasant way. I mean, at least losing a job is kind of like, okay, it's an obvious sign. But I've had clients get like, you know, really bad illnesses or get sick or deaths. And, you know, so thank you for sharing. And yeah, the reality is like we're always entrepreneurs, I think, are tested more than anybody because it's really like stepping into your authenticity, your greatness, your leadership, your personal power. And of course, there's going to be, you know, stuff that comes to the surface, imposter syndrome. Who am I to do this? And then there's like the asking for money thing. Like everybody has a hard time with that at first, you know, like it's so easy to collect a paycheck from some company. No one has a problem asking for a raise, you know, or like asking for what they want if it's a company. But when it's yourself, it's like, oh my God, it's deep. So yeah, I want to hear about, so where you are now in your business and what you're up to now versus a year ago, you know, cause I remember when you first wrote me and were like, hey, I'm interested in the mastermind. And I was like, oh, but I thought you were doing great. You know, it's like, I mean, and here's the thing, everybody can do better. I've had clients that are making, you know, 5 to 10 million that are like, hey, I want to, you know, expand in this direction or, you know, move into this or whatever it is. So it's not just about like who's doing great. It's like there's always an expansion. But yeah, where were you about a year ago? And then what has transpired over the last year? And you've just come back from a training and yeah, and tell a little bit about where you've gone and what you're offering now.
Yeah. So that's a great question. It's definitely bringing up a lot of reflection right now. So a year ago, I feel that I was on the same path, right? The same path as far as integration coaching, the medicine work, supporting folks and whatnot. But even through all of that, I didn't have a lot of clarity or maybe focus, I should say, you know, because I'm one to ADHD, right? Something looks pretty. Oh, wait, let me go over here and try this out. Oh, wait, let me try this out. And I was also doing a lot of trainings leading up to about a year ago. I was doing a lot of trainings, which were all great. They all were great, but you know, it was a lot of that, almost too much things happening, you know. And when that happens, what progress is really being made on, you know, what's really, really important. So within the last year, you know, especially coming into your program, again, the universe is doing this thing, another big introduction, well, reintroduction into grief. My dad died 2 months after I joined the mastermind. And it's like, damn, okay, I'm going through this again, you know? And it's really interesting how I was when my mom passed away because I didn't have all these tools at all, really. When she passed away, I was learning the tools, but I was in a really, really dark place, really, really dark place. Found my way out. When my dad passed away, it led me to some depression for a while that I was not expecting. So, you know, I was down in this balance of like, okay, finding clarity and focus within my business, but I'm also dealing with grief. So because of that, as I'm sitting here talking to you, I'm seeing like that moment in depression allow for the clarity and focus to pop up because I wasn't really doing too much with growing my personal business. You know, I had some things on the side, just like more easy task to bring some income in, right? But I really wasn't focusing on my business because I was going through grief and the fact of losing my father and how much that's brought up for me. But the interesting piece is that I had all the tools to navigate this different, not different, this second time around of losing a parent. So that right there allowed me to sit with all the emotions and things that were coming up. So a lot of emotions from my business, like you said, imposter syndrome, insecurities, who am I to be doing this? All of that was coming up a lot. And there were definitely a lot of wins throughout this. I might not have been, making a ton of money every month, but I was still serving folks, which is important. Serving folks is really, really number one for me. And then there were still a lot of people reaching out for support and giving me opportunities to speak at conferences. So again, Spirit doing this thing, okay, you need to sit down and not push the pavement on the business, but we're still going to give you a lot of opportunities to share your voice and let you know that you have a place here in this space, and you have a lot of value to offer. So that was really interesting and something that I noticed throughout my time. I was like, okay, I'm still getting these opportunities. My face is still out here. People still know who I am. I'm still helping folks. And then the clarity, again, throughout that time started to pop up. So where I am right now, I'm glad that I'm on the other end. And I have a lot of clarity and focus, and I'm really, really ready and will be taking a lot of action for 2025. It just took me a lot of time to navigate that. And, I'm still doing some trainings like the 5-MeO DMT training, which actually, we can talk about that if you want, but that was a huge piece of getting here, like that clarity, that focus, that healing of my relationship with my father. It played a huge part, like I said, up leveling. It's like, okay, wow. These are all the things you need to address. This is the path you need to take. There's no more half-stepping. Now is the time. You went through all of those stories and you let them go, create a new one. So that's where I'm at right now. And it's been a heck of a year.
Oh my God, I just got chills. Yeah, wow. Thank you for sharing this. And it's weird because there was actually this theme I noticed. Every year I have a mastermind. There's a theme, with the group, and there were actually a few people. I don't even know if you knew this because someone else mentioned this recently, and I'm like, oh, I guess because she didn't share it openly, but someone else lost her father in the program, and it's these big grief experiences. It's like we have to tend to them, and I do believe in that too. Like Spirit will guide you as it needs to be, and sometimes the needing is to just give yourself space and time and really listen and like feel. And It's interesting because it just shows like it's not always about the pushing and the marketing and the doing and the strategies. It's like I really believe it's who you be and that alignment. And for every step back or anything that's challenging or hard, there's always the opposite side of it. And there's nothing as powerful as something like grief and death and losing a loved one, especially a parent. And I think there's a lot of medicine here to share, by the way. I've talked about this now numerous times because I've been processing through my own deep, like extended grief portal. That's not even, it's like anticipatory grief, I think is what they call it. It's just like this ongoing grief, dealing with an aging mom who's like declining. But I've been exploring this idea of like, look at our world, our world is filled with a lot of grief. And I think on some level, this medicine of how to process grief and how to sit with it and hold it and feel it truly is going to be needed a lot over the future few years. I mean, look at us when we're recording this right now, we're still, processing through these LA fires, which I think are still burning as we're speaking. And it's like, oh my God, that's just like one of the things, there's war, there's personal loss, there's friends. I don't know. Everybody seems to know someone with cancer right now. I mean, and I'm curious, if you're willing to speak about it, how has the medicine helped you with grief? And do you believe that any of these medicines is like a helpful ally through something like grieving death or loss, or even like planetary grief?
Yeah, that's oh man. Um, so for me, I'll speak about my recent experience. I do believe that, these medicines can help us process our relationship with grief and death and other things. And when I say medicines, right, I I don't think that psychedelics or sacred medicines are the tool for everybody, right? You'll have some folks that be like, this is all you need, but I feel like to be false. So, that medicine can be yoga, it could be Tai Chi, it could be, you know, exercising, taking care of your body. Like, I just want to emphasize that. But for me, that medicine that showed up in my life was 5-MeO DMT. That really was a huge, huge teacher and ally. I feel like I'm the assistant to the sacred medicine.
Yeah.
And I was a student through the teachings that it was giving me. I'm really grateful to the spirit of the toad. And that was a very long process as well, because I was going through that training with Joelle and Victoria at 5 education, 10 retreats. And that was a 9-month process along with going through your mastermind. A lot of information to take in because you want to keep people safe. And, this wasn't my first time with 5-MeO DMT, but I can remember the first time I sat with 5. One of the messages that came up was you're able to carry this medicine only if you decide to do that. It wasn't like one of those things where, oh, you need to be doing this, right? It was like only if you decide. And it took me a very long time to decide if that's something that I wanted to do. A very long time. So, yeah, the way 5 showed up in my life, I had a really interesting time down there because we sat with the medicine a lot. A lot. Being a facilitator, you had to receive and facilitate. It was a lot in a lot of different ways that I sat with this medicine. And while I was down there at Tandava, it was also my father's birthday. And I knew that stuff was going to come up. And I haven't sat with the medicine since he's passed away. I haven't sat with sacred medicine. I've done like breath work and, some other things, but I knew a lot was going to come up around him. And one of the biggest things that appeared for me was the opportunity to rewrite my story. My dad, rest in peace to him, like I said, he had his own journey. He wasn't in my life. He had some battles with substances, and I've held on to that story for so long. And I've used that story as an excuse to show up in the world in the way that I did in the past, being an asshole or, sorry if I cussed. Sorry,
Okay.
that was good. Okay. So yeah, just being, a narcissist and abusive and just, oh, I'm this way because my dad wasn't in my life. It was an opportunity to let go of those stories. And again, it was a choice that was presented to me, because I feel like we always have free will no matter what we do. But I can remember the first time I went in, I was sitting there and all of my male ancestors showed up. Some that I've,
By the way, that happened to me. All my female ancestors showed up my first time.
yeah.
Go on.
Um,
Wild.
they all showed up. Some I knew, some I didn't recognize, but they're all like talking to me, and I'm asking these hard questions like, why wasn't my dad in my life? Like, I wouldn't be here right now if he was like in my life and whatnot. And, they all said what they said, but there was one that was like, hey, I said, why isn't life fair? Like, why isn't my life fair? And this ancestor is a tough love. It's like life is fair if you think about it, because you dealt, the cards that you're able to handle, and look at all the challenges that you've overcame so far, and you're still here. So I was like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So they told me to go back in. I went back in immediately, and that's when my dad appeared. It was just me and him. We had a hard conversation. Um, and we built something over the last couple of years before he passed away, which I'm really grateful for. It doesn't replace all the years, but it was still something that I'm really grateful for. And as him and I are talking, I'm just listening to his story, and there was a moment that I just heard, okay, you heard everything you needed to say. Are you going to hold on to this story, or are you going to change your story and let the old ones go so you can flourish and show up a better person, a better father, a better son, right? And I decided to let go of those stories, and it was so powerful. It was so powerful. I actually needed some help. The guy that facilitated for me, I kind of let him know, like, hey, I'm going in with this intention to do some work around my father wound. If I need some help, let me know. And I can remember one point in time where I had that option. I held my hand out, and the guy didn't grab it. Still, being in the medicine space, touch can be a very powerful thing in certain moments. And I screamed out his name, and he went to go grab it, and I just needed that masculine touch filled with love. And that's when I broke through and was able to release that story and find a new appreciation for my father and honor him just as much as my mother. And that was really, really important for me to move forward in my life. It was a completion that I needed to go through on my own. And I'm 38 and it took me this long to get here. But by doing that, so much has been released for me. And yeah.
Yeah, your energy looks so different than a year ago. I mean, not like your energy was ever like bad or anything, but you can just feel it, even everybody in the mastermind said this. I think it was 1 or 2 calls ago. Everybody's like, wow, you seem different. You're glowing. It's like that letting go of these layers that we hold on to. And especially, gosh, with the parents, it doesn't, and it's funny because I'm in my transformational NLP training. We just recently talked about it. It's like, it doesn't matter if they're alive or not. We still have these living in our cellular memory, and we have to do the work to then go and kind of reprogram, let go of the story, but also like rewire ourselves to step into a new story, because people hold on to these, for generations even,
so long.
like the ancestry,
so long.
Like I've done so much work around even things from like, wait, that wasn't even mine, but somehow it's still living in me from 5 generations ago, but that is incredible, this story. And wow, it brought tears to my eyes because, I can already feel like I've done a lot of processing around what I'm going through with the help of certain medicines, mostly ayahuasca and little mushrooms, but and flower essences actually, but just, to see the possibility of, people being able to like truly feel this and then also like choose a new path forward versus holding on to these, stories or grudges or even like deeply ingrained patterns that are not even in our awareness, which is where these medicines, 5-MeO in particular has always mystified me. I've interviewed Joelle like 3 or 4 times. I've interviewed Rack Razam and multiple people talking about it. And I'm like, I think I even said to someone, like, do you feel like this medicine clears karma? Because I feel like it does. Because I had the exact, my first time, I had the exact experience where it was like every single one of my female ancestors, like, flashed before me. And it felt very like deeply karmic. Like there's no other words for it. But, what are your views on this medicine? It's such a mysterious medicine to me. Like it's kind of relatively new, even though it's, from this, ancient toad, but the discovery of it's new. Like what are your thoughts on that? Or what do you feel with this?
Yeah. Number one, it's a super, super intense process. Right? I feel like 5-MeO, DMT, Bufo is definitely not for everyone. It's something that shouldn't be taken lightly at all. It's very important to have proper preparation and integration afterwards as well, because so much can be brought up to the surface in a short amount of time. You know, when you sit with the medicine 15, 45 minutes, you're like immediately shot up and in a different place. Sometimes, most of the times, you really can't even explain, where you are, just because that's just how the medicine works. They call it the God molecule. Um, yeah. Another thing I would like to say is that I feel like you have to be comfortable with the idea of dying when you sit with this medicine, because it can feel like that a lot. And in that space can be very scary. Um, but yeah, it's a beautiful, powerful medicine, and it's something that shouldn't be done alone, right? If you decide to sit with this medicine, you want to make sure that your practitioner, facilitator has the proper training. Ask them a lot of questions, right? And it's very important for you as the participant, if you are deciding to sit with this medicine, to be very truthful and upfront about your medical history, because people can die off of 5-MeO DMT, Bufo, if it's not done properly. So those are the things that, I want to say. If you are thinking about learning to sit with this medicine, 5 Education, brought to you by Joelle, Victoria, phenomenal. It's super, super intense. Super, super intense. We had to take exams, tests, co-visibility. Like, it was a whole bunch of stuff that we had to do. And my manual is like this thick.
Good.
So, it's really, really, um, I feel like I went through the proper training, the proper place. I really can't recommend anybody else, to go learn and sit with this medicine, but it's very important to be safe. And if you decide to sit with it, just make sure that your practitioner knows their stuff, because a lot can come up in a short amount of time. And that integration piece is so, so crucial. So, so crucial.
Yes.
Um, I'm just now starting to come back to the world, my path, my business. Because just to give you an example, I had to spend like 2.5 weeks down in Mexico towards the end of September. And my integration, I got back home pretty much October 1st, which is my mom's birthday. And my whole world melted for the last Q4 of, of 2024. Those last 3 months, it's been all integration for me, all integration. So those are some of the things I want to say. But it's just really important to be safe and like ask your facilitator a lot of questions, because there's a lot of people out there serving this medicine that aren't properly trained, and people are getting harmed, and we don't want that.
Oh yes. Thank you for sharing this, because back when I first did it, it was a long time ago in the grand scheme of the psychedelic space, and I didn't quite have the right amount of integration. I had a therapist who thankfully knew medicines. She just didn't know that one, but it took me like a year to integrate one session. Thankfully since then, integration's a bigger conversation, but I will say I have seen people who I always try not to judge, and I've seen people who are serving it like, I saw an incident in Costa Rica about 2 years ago where I was at a party, like there was like an open bar, and they're like, oh, okay, the people going to do Bufo, we're ready now. And I was like, oh my God, you're kidding me. People are going from a party to go do Bufo. Like,
It's crazy.
I was like, I was
It's
appalled.
it's nuts. I've actually seen something similar
Oh my God,
in
really?
that. Yeah.
No.
I've seen something similar to where this guy was just like, I happened to be somewhere with a group of folks, and this guy showed up and was like, "Oh, hey, I'm serving Bufo. If anybody wants any," and I'm
What?
like, "Were you trained
Wow.
to do this?" He's like, "No, but my shaman gave it to me, so I just feel like I'm able to serve five because I serve mushrooms." And I was like, "Nope, that's a red flag." And I gave him a whole long speech about how that is not safe. The other
Oh
thing I
my
forgot to
God.
mention, that's super, super important is dosing. Start low. Low. Yeah. Again, this goes to the facilitator, right? You have certain ranges because a low can still take you fully out. So it's just super, super important to be safe and ask those questions.
I always wonder what I got that first time. I should ask her. I'm still friends with her. Yeah, because my first time was a full release dose and it was wild. I mean, I've never, and yeah, that whole, what you said about comfortable with death. I mean, I knew what I was getting into because I had friends that had done it with this particular person and had explained that to me, but it's like, it's no joke. I mean, I've sat with a lot of ayahuasca throughout my
Hmm.
life, and DMT is just so different. It was like, oh wow, that like threw me off for a while because it was just such a fast, intense experience. And then I died and came back to life, as I put it, because there's no words for what one
Yeah.
experiences. But the level of healing and this kind of, I don't know, like energetic purge that happens. This is where it's like there's theories and who knows, like I do feel like on some level, like when I came back out of it, it felt like, oh, this is a medicine, made for these times. Like it's here for these times. Not made, but like it's like come out into the collective for a reason. And it's also definitely not for everybody, but I can see why people are drawn to it for like this pretty fast, deep healing. It's profound. I've seen people's lives completely change in like a matter of like one or two sessions, but with the proper preparation,
Right. Yeah, I
integration,
was just about to say that. Yeah,
with
because
the integration.
it could
Yeah, because
definitely be a fast way to mess things up too.
yeah, exactly. That's why I was like, oh my God, I can't believe these people are doing it in a, after a party and taking it very lightly. I'm like, I don't know what happened to those people's lives afterwards, but like that is probably not the most responsible way. But this is why it's important to work with someone, like Jonathan, someone who's been trained in integration, has experience. The word integration, I still think people don't take it so seriously
Mm.
until, for a lot of people, they have to go through the ringer and then wake up and realize, like, maybe I should have some support in my life. And integration is not just one time, it's like an
It's
ongoing
ongoing.
process.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's like it's a lifelong process. And I in the beginning, I definitely thought it was like one time thing, but I've quickly learned it's an ongoing process of things.
Yeah. I mean, especially, because I make jokes that I've been integrating for, I don't know, like I've been working with someone for, I don't know, almost 10 years straight now. And
Mm.
but I say it's because I, not regularly, but I fairly often still work with medicine. And so to me, it's like if I'm going, and not just medicine, it's like life in itself is a gigantic ceremony these
Of
days.
course.
So how I always say, how does anyone even survive this day and age without some kind of support? These times that we're in are so intense. People are going through so many transitions and changes, and then of course there's grief, and then there's throw in the collective grief. It's like we need one another to help us through these times. And like you said, that one experience of a hand, which, by the way, I'm the one person where it's like when I'm going through a hard time, all I want to do is hold a hand. Like, oh my God,
Yeah, yeah, really?
hold my hand for just 2 minutes. A lot of people have seen me do that. They're like, oh my God, get a helper. But yeah, I'm just curious to hear
Of course.
what has come through about what's next on your path, as like you're a leader in the space, you coaching people, you hold space, you're involved in, the yoga Reiki world. Yeah, what do you feel like is next on the horizon? And by the way, anything to do with like a grief container? I'm just curious, like a grief offering.
You know what? That's funny that you said that because as we were sitting here talking, that was also like coming through for me because a lot of the people that I've supported resonate with my story and have gone through a very similar type of grief. So, thank you for bringing that to the table.
Yeah.
Thank you for bringing that to the table. Um, so yeah, continuing to work as far as integration, serving medicine, of course, um, but adding the consistency to everything, showing up every single day in all the ways. Again, it's about, for me, I'm realizing that, in the past, I've always wanted those instant results and the unknown can throw me off. And I think that's from like my tech time because it's like very analytical and logic and you put things together and it should work, right? But the consistency is going to be big for me this year. We do have Three Rivers Psychedelic Society here in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. That's been going really, really good. That's been a great opportunity to bring the community together here in Pittsburgh from different sections, right? We just had a talk with the Psychedelic Pharmacists Association. So we did a panel with them. We created a space to where no matter what your relationship with psychedelics or sacred medicine is, this is a space for you. So if you're into like psychedelics and religion or, food or whatever, we created that space. And it's really interesting to see the events that we put on together because we get a wide range of folks that come in, which is really, really nice. So that's going to be a big, big thing for this year, me and my co-founders. Another thing that has appeared really clear is that I'm a creative. I haven't really been creating a lot in the last year or so. And listen, when I say creative, like art, it's just like a form of communication, a way for me to connect with folks. So, Heal Homie has birthed from this creation, right? So, Heal Homie is about being authentic on our path and understanding that our path can be raw, pretty, and ugly at the same time. So this is a lifestyle wellness brand that I birthed that is going to be out into the world and it's going to be a place for my creative ideas. I'm really big into fashion. I love hip hop. So you're going to see like a combination of the things in that apparel and it's going to speak to everybody because we're all on our healing journey. That's why it's called Heal Home. So feeling really good about that. I'm really grateful about that idea. Trips as well, continuing the work that I've been doing. Then the last thing I'm actually going to say that I'm going to be tackling this year, I'm writing a book. Writing a book about my experiences in tech and my experiences with the medicine. I don't want to give too much away, but it's a very clear mission that I was given, and you'll be seeing that this year too. And I feel like that's going to be a good thing. But consistency is needed in all of those, and that's what I feel is here now. I'm embodying that consistency, that action. And even speaking about it, I could feel it feels different as I'm speaking to you. And again, your class helped in that process of consistency, showing up every single day, right? It doesn't need to be perfect. Just put it out and go. And that perfectionism has held me up quite a bit in my past, but no more. So those are the things that I'm putting out. You'll be seeing a lot of those between those things. You'll be seeing a lot around social media speaking about. And yeah, it's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year. It's going to be a great year for me and the people that I'm surrounded by. And I'm just really grateful for that.
So good. Oh, thank you for sharing. I'm excited to hear about this book. And yeah, and this is something I'm sure you heard me preach in the mastermind program. And I've said this to clients. It's as an entrepreneur, especially coming from a job, like a career in whatever, where you had to show up certain hours and certain days, or else you don't have a job.
Yeah.
It's hard for people to stay consistent, and I get it. It's like, oh, there's so many distractions. There's the internet. There's you can do whatever you want. You can go on a walk in the middle of the day. But what I tell people is really, it's like find the balance. Have space for me. The way I see it is like, okay, my morning practice, and then I have whatever evenings for whatever. But then, kind of during working hours, I have a certain level of dedication, and I treat it like a job. I try not to work on Fridays. I very rarely work on Fridays. So it's a good job because it's only four, really,
4 out of 5.
but like 4 dedicated
Right.
days, like dedicated. And then sometimes, random like Sunday nights or whatever. But the whole consistency is the one thing I see with so many entrepreneurs where they fall off, or maybe they get really in their comfort zone, or maybe they get a bunch of clients and they're like coasting for a while. But really the best way for consistency, I believe, is like to really make it so much more than just about you. It's like about the homies, right? Like the heal homies, like who am I serving? What are people going through? The people who need help, the people that are going through grief, and really make it bigger than you and show up for that. And then it kind of becomes easy to be consistent. So I just wanted to share that to inspire anybody listening. It's like, and then, yeah, when life happens and shit hits the fan, which it's always going to, it's like, this is life. There's always going to be the ups and downs, tend to it how you need, how you can. But then when the, time is right, you'll know, and like, you can jump back in.
Yeah.
But
I'm glad you said that. Thank you for putting that piece out there. And again, that was the biggest thing, treating this like a job. Because I'm sitting there thinking, not right now, but in the past, over like the last year and a half or so, I showed up every day for a 9 to 5. Why am I not doing that for myself?
yeah,
Right? Even just managing my calendar, right? I did that. They require you to manage your calendar for meetings and deadlines and tasks in the 9 to 5. Why am I not doing that for myself? So I started doing that after my integration period started to like slow down. I was like, okay, let me just apply this for stuff in my house first. Managing my time.
life.
Life, right? Like, okay, we're leaving to
kids.
drop off the kids at school this time, picking them up basketballs at this time. And then I started to introduce the business tasks, and that's been really, really helpful for me. But we all show up at things when it's time, and now it's time. So, no looking back. We're going forward.
Good. It's so funny because it's like so many people have an easy time doing it when we're like working for others, and we're like, okay, if I don't do this, I'm going to lose my job. But then it's like, I mean, I always say, like, who would you rather do it for, yourself or just some job that you hate, And that's where it's like, yeah, it takes a certain level of like getting kind of, serious with yourself. I had a mentor many years ago tell me, and this is with my old business, he said something that really hit my heart one day. It was like, is this a business or is it a hobby? And I was like, oh my God.
I've had that too.
I know. Actually. And I was like, maybe he's right. I'm not taking it seriously. And like, when we start to really embody it and take ourselves seriously, other people will as well. And this is like the next level of growth for everybody. I'm so glad you shared about this. It's just the reality check. Like, we all go through it, and it's so easy. I mean, even like, God, even what was it? Like last week, there was a day where I was like, staring at all the media around the fires. And I was like, okay, it's good that I see this. And there's a point where it's just like, okay, now I'm just seeing the same thing over and over. Right. And I want to serve and make a difference on earth. So that's my way of contributing how I can, because I'm not going to be able to put those out myself. So what's the point of spending like 5 hours online staring at them, right? So, Quest, I am so proud of you and all that's to come, and like all, you're just involved in so much of this community. a lot of people I've talked to over the years are like, they know you, everybody's connected to you, and you're, running this great group in, in Pittsburgh and really showing up. So thank you for doing the work, especially despite all these, setbacks. And these are your medicine, right? Like,
You're
this is
100%.
it.
Yeah. Nah, thank you for being a supporter, right? Being a supporter and, just sometimes, not even saying sometimes, like seeing in me what I didn't see in myself during certain times, right? And it's been a huge, huge piece in my growth, right? Yeah, even though there's like a point in time where I didn't pop up on all the calls for a good bit of calls for some time, but like was going through my process, pop back up, and
Totally.
but again, you played a huge, huge part in me getting here, and you taught quite a bit of things that I needed to know for my business just to make things easier along the path. But again, that consistency showing up, not only for myself, for everybody that I serve, really, really important. So thanks. And yeah, if folks want to get in touch with me,
Yes.
questtheconduit.com. All right, that's where I offer preparation, integration, services as far as like microdosing consulting. You can reach out to me and see what I have going on at questtheconduit.com. And if you happen to be in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, or want to support our organization anywhere where you are in the world, you can go to tripspgh.com. Sorry, tripspgh.org.
.org. Oh,
Yeah,
okay.
yeah, .org.
Well, we'll have all the links right here in the show notes, including links to your Instagram,
Okay.
your, social media. But
Was it
yes,
sure?
please reach out to Jonathan. I cannot recommend him enough. And, I'm really excited for what's next. I can't wait to see. These are my favorite things. And we'll have to do a follow-up interview to be like, okay, where you at? And
I
the book.
appreciate you. Yes. It'll be ready by then.
Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your medicine. And I'm so honored that you trusted in the mastermind and me. And what a journey it's been, and so deep. And it's just, talking to you, talking to everybody in the group, it gives me hope for our future. It's like just to know that there's really good people doing really good work and dedicated to, this collective healing and transformation. I really do. Even despite madness and chaos, I really have faith in the future of humanity and this planet. So thank you for your work.
Thank you. Appreciate you.